Well, the EFL season, of course, gets underway this weekend. It promises to be another roller coaster ride in the three divisions of the Championship, League One and League Two. It's myself, Warren Ashurst, with Tom McGarry and Jack Ogalbe alongside our EFL experts to run us through potential promotion and relegation candidates. Guys, let's start off with the Championship. I'll tell you my thoughts in a moment in terms of who I think may well go up and be promoted and maybe even win the league this season. But let's start with you, Tom. Who are you thinking?
I quite have a fancy for Stoke City this season. They were the favourites 12 months ago to bounce straight back to the Premier League and really struggled. There was a lot of dead wood still in their squad. They got rid of their manager halfway through the campaign. Brought in Nathan Jones from Luton, who's proven in lower levels that he's capable of getting sides promoted. And what he's done, he's got rid of a lot of the dead wood, the high earners over the course of this summer, and brought in proven Championship pedigree, added goals to their squad as well with the acquisition of Lee Gregory. Stoke actually scored less goals than relegated Rotherham in the Championship last season. So if they can address that, which I think they have done, then I think they're certainly in for a much more improved campaign. And I can see them, if not pushing for the playoff positions, even going a little bit further and eyeing up the top two.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're there or thereabouts again this time at Stoke. Jack, who are you looking at in terms of potential league winners?
Well, I think overall quality, West Brom have done some really good business. I quite like Romain Sawyers, who's a boy from a local boy they bought back from Brentford, but I think goals might be a bit of a problem for them. Fulham then, for me, it's kept Alexander Mitrovic. It's almost like a new signing, keeping hold of him. He should be playing in the Premier League, looks like he's staying in the Championship, and he could be the difference this season.
Well, I have to say, I fancy West Brom as well to go on under Slaven Bilic and retain or go back to the top flight, as I say, after a couple of seasons back down in the Championship. Yes, they've lost Jay Rodriguez, but I do think with Romain Sawyers, they've got an ideal man to come on and step in and get the goals there. And I think, as ever, they tend to be strong at home and also at the back as well. And I think that's solid foundations to build on. If we're looking at a few outsiders, by the way, looking at Brentford potentially at 9-2 to be promoted. They've brought in Pontus Jansson from Leeds, and they do look like a more strengthened squad and a side that have had plenty of Championship experience, of course, over recent years. Preston, who went close to getting into the playoffs last year, they brought back David Nugent, massive experience at this level, and certainly knows where the back of the net is. They're 10-1 to be promoted. You've already mentioned Fulham, Jack. We're looking at Huddersfield and Cardiff. Tom, out of those two, who do you think is more likely to challenge?
I think Cardiff look the stronger. They've kept the nucleus of their squad together. They're hard to beat. They've got a proven Championship manager, haven't they, in Neil Warnock. He knows how to get sides in and amongst the promotion mix. And I think I like the balance of them. You look at Burnley from a couple of years ago. They got promoted to the Premier League, went straight back down and were actually the stronger for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cardiff were in the promotion mix. For Huddersfield, it's a lot more difficult to see. There was so much doom and gloom surrounding them last season. Jan Sievert, unproven in English football. It looks like he's going to get a fair crack at the whip to at least try and get things going. But I think Huddersfield, realistically for them, it's probably a season of consolidation, finish in mid-table, don't flirt with the relegation positions and then go again. I can't really see them challenging.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, I think. I mean, we haven't mentioned one team who's actually at the top of most of the bookmakers' list in terms of promotion, Jack. That's Leeds United after what happened last season. But they've lost so many players and key players from the squad. Can they challenge again?
I'm not entirely sure. I think they've got a decent first 11, but they've lost Pontus Jansson. Looks like Kemar Roos heading to Anderlecht. They're two huge players. The second choice goalkeeper, Bailey Peacock-Farrell, is also heading to Burnley. You've got to say, where's the depth? Have they got the depth? We saw last season that if they bought a striker, they probably would have gone up in January. Then that's what they were crying out for. They didn't do it, and the lack of depth cost them in the end. And I'm not going to say they're going to struggle, but I don't think they're going to go up.
No, I think what you mentioned there about the strength and depth in the squad, if they pick up one or two injuries, Leeds could have problems in order to try and stay up there with a chasing pack. Let's look at the other end of the table then about relegation. We always look, of course, at the newly promoted sides, Tom, as to potentially going down. I mean, I have Luton as one of my three to go down. I think my concern there is that Graham Jones has taken charge. He's been ordinarily a coach during his career, under the likes of Roberto Martinez in particular, and he's been a very good first-team coach. This is his first managerial role, really, at a really high level. 4-1, Luton to be relegated. That looks like decent value for me.
I think it is, as you say, Graham Jones. We don't know a lot about him as a number one. They've lost their two first-choice fullbacks from last season as well. They both moved to the Premier League, and Stacey and Justin. So how do they fill that void? Luton were very much a side. Yes, they played a back four under Nathan Jones, but it was all about getting the fullbacks forward as quickly as they could. They were very important and key to the attacking side of the game. So can they replace them with like for like, and can they take that attacking philosophy into the Championship, where they are going to be up against bigger teams with higher budgets? I would, having said that, lean more towards Luton surviving than not. I think out of the three sides that have come up, they're probably the best equipped to survive. I think it will be a season of struggle for Barnsley and Charlton. Barnsley in particular, I find it hard to see them not finishing in the bottom three. But for Luton, although there's concerns, I do have hope that they could just about do enough.
Well, I actually saw quite a bit of Barnsley last season, and I think they've got the solid foundation at the back, which could be crucial. I think their performances at Oakwell will be the key if they are going to stay up this season. Jack, what are you thinking in terms of relegation?
I'm a bit worried for Millwall, if I'm totally honest. They made a number of signings, but unproven really. Conor Marnie could be a really good player, but can he cut it in the Championship? They've been treading water a few times and then gone some good runs towards the end of the season. Neil Harris is a good coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows the club. The home form will be crucial, but I'm not sure they've got enough in the squad after a bit of a clear out this summer. A lot of new faces. It might take them a spell to gel, and I'm not too sure about their chances, I've got to say.
Well, I have to say there's two former Premier League teams for me as well that are worth watching in terms of the prices for relegation, because I think Hull might be in for a season of struggle after bringing in Grant McCann. This after Nigel Adkins had done such a good job on a limited budget. You can get 9-2 on Hull to be relegated. And Reading under Jose Gomez, who I would suggest has got very little knowledge of the Championship. That's not to say that he might not turn out to be a really good manager for Reading, but I do think they've had a couple of seasons of struggle now, and I can see it again being another season of struggle. 3-1 for Reading to be relegated this season. That's our thoughts then in terms of the Championship. Let's move down into League One now, and I'd have to say, Tom, I think I can see this being probably the most wide open battle for promotion this season. A number of what you would class as bigger clubs in League One this season. Where are you looking if you were going to put your money on somebody?
Well, it's hard to look beyond Sunderland, isn't it? They were so close to getting promoted last year. 90th minute, a goal against Charlton in the playoff final cost them a place in the Championship. And Jack Ross has had a season to bed in and really stamp his authority on the squad. He knows what the English Football League is about now, and he's added to his squad, not in terms of getting big names in, because Sunderland's budget isn't what it was when they were in the Championship and the Premier League, but he's trying to bring in good, solid League One players. I like the three strikers he has, Mark McNulty, Charlie Wyke up front, and the Will Grigg as well. So I think all three of them have the potential to score 15 plus goals at that level, and even if just two of them do that, then Sunderland should be there or thereabouts. They've got a solid backline. We know all about the support. They can make the Stadium of Light a fortress if they can build some momentum and start going on a decent run. So for me, it's the obvious choice, I suppose, in a lot of ways, but it's really difficult to see beyond Sunderland.
Well, you'd expect them to be there or thereabouts. As you say, they may not have the budget of previously, but certainly the fan backing as well. What about you, Jan?
I fancy Peterborough, actually. They've got a good front two in Mo Isa and Ivan Turney, good coach in Darren Ferguson, who knows this division well. He's a bit of a promotion specialist. He's got the magic touch, hasn't he, with his dad being Sir Alex, and I think they've got to be a team to look forward. I think Kenny Jackett as well, we talk about managers at Pompey, they've got to be candidates. Again, they've lost a few players, brought a few in, and he always seems to get a good mix. They missed out in the playoffs last term, and they'll be another team to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, I think Pompey will have to get off to a good start to try and put that playoff nightmare behind them from last season. If they can, then they certainly could be there or thereabouts. I've been looking at a couple of other options in terms of betting angle to this, because I think 2-1 on Ipswich is a decent price. Relegated, of course, rock bottom in the Championship last season. But Paul Lambert has had quite a lot of experience at this level as a manager. He's got a lot of good young talent at his disposal at Ipswich. And they've also managed to bring in Luke Garbett on loan for Everton, which I think could be a really good signing for Ipswich this season. Rotherham, another team who were relegated last season as well. They've done some good business. And in Paul Warne, he knows everything there is to know about the club inside out. He's certainly got a good grasp on the young players that they have there. And I think at 4-1, it could be a good price. And if you want an outside bet for promotion, look for them to be around about the playoffs. It's potentially Oxford. They've had very little money to spend in terms of additions, but they brought in Ben Woodburn on loan from Liverpool for the season. He is clearly too good for that level, and if he plays anywhere near what he's capable of doing, then Oxford could be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. In terms of the bottom end of the table, Tom, this might be a little bit easier. 4 teams to go down. You can maybe say that Bury and Bolton will be among them, bearing in mind that they'll have points deductions and financial issues to go along with. But elsewhere, who would you look at?
I don't even think Bolton and Bury have 11 players between them at this moment in time, so it's difficult to look beyond those two for relegation. And I think there's a number of sides, I don't want to say dead wood, but a number of teams at the bottom end of that division that'll be breathing a huge sigh of relief that two of their rivals have had points deductions. You're looking at sides like Gillingham, Rochdale, AFC Wimbledon, Accrington Stanley as well. I'd expect all those sides to struggle. The latter two, Wimbledon and Accrington in particular, they seem to be punching above their weight, and it would be a real achievement if they were to survive in the third tier once again. Let's not forget it's a difficult division to survive in. 4 teams go down, so I think I'd be looking perhaps Wimbledon and Accrington to be involved in that. Gillingham do have Steve Evans, a really experienced manager, in charge. That might be enough for them to keep their heads above water, but they lost their top scorer from last season, Tom Eaves. How do they find the goals at that level? I've got a bit of a doubt about that. Rochdale, as I say, perennial strugglers, again, another team. If they survive, that's an achievement. So I think between those 4 for the other 2 relegation positions, but I wouldn't completely rule out Bolton in particular if they can get a takeover, bring in some shrewd free agents. Don't forget the transfer window doesn't close until the end of the month in League 1 and 2, so they might still have some time to bring some players in. So there's an outside chance they could build some momentum, but it's going to be really, really difficult.
Well, on my notes in front of me, I've got Rochdale and Wimbledon as well as the other 2 candidates. Any thoughts?
Oh, funny you say that. Wimbledon, one of my sides, but Accrington are the ones I'm really worried about. It's a great story, isn't it? They've been out of business, come back, come up to the highest they've ever been. But the lack of resources, eventually it's going to tell. They've done a fantastic job. John Coleman and Andy Holt, they deserve plenty of credit, don't they? But where are the goals going to come from? That's my worry for Accrington. They're always scrapping, it seems, and I'm not sure they're going to have enough to stay in the division. Well,
that's our thoughts then on League 1. Last but not least, we're going to delve into League 2 now, and let's start off with the battle for promotion this season. I have to say, for me, my outstanding candidates here will be Plymouth. I think Ryan Lowe did a fantastic job with Bury last season. He's brought in a couple of his players from that Bury squad that got promotion to Plymouth. As a rule, they probably are a League 1 side for me. I have to say, I thought they were disappointing last season when they probably should have done better and stayed up, but they've got another chance to get themselves back now into the third tier, Tom, and I fancy at 11-5, they're a decent price to do so.
I think they are. They've brought in proven quality at this level, as you mentioned, a proven manager in Ryan Lowe. It would be difficult for them psychologically, those players, I suppose, to go again in the same division and try and win promotion. So there's a little bit of a caveat there, but I do think Plymouth, along with Bradford, who are also relegated from League 1, and Salford, who were promoted from the National League. We know all about their financial backing, very high-profile owners. So I think they're potentially the 3 standout teams that you'd probably hunch towards going for the automatic promotion positions. But the outside bet for me in terms of promotion is Northampton, who installed Keith Curle as their manager when they were in all kinds of relegation trouble last season. He actually only lost 8 of his 36 games in charge. He's had a full pre-season with his players, and he's brought in some really good experience. Alan McCormack in the middle of the park, 35 years of age, but he can certainly do it at League 2 level. And Nicky Adams, who previously won promotion with Bury, with Northampton as well a few seasons ago in his first spell at the club, and he's got the most assists out of any player at League 2 level over the last 3 or 4 seasons combined. He played with Keith Curle under Keith Curle at Carlisle and had a lot of success there. So I think he could play a key role and provide the goals that Northampton will need. I expect them to be at the very least pushing for a playoff place.
Well, this man sees plenty of League 2 football, and he did say to me last year about Northampton's home record is crucial. I think they're going to have to do well at the Six Fields, and they probably will do well at the Six Fields this season to be up there, around and about in the battle to get promoted. Jack, you got a sneaky feeling for League 2?
Well, Bradford are going to be my team. I've got to say, James Vaughan and Clayton Donaldson, they're too good to be playing in that division. You mentioned Ben Woodburn about League 1, League 2, they're too good to be playing in that division.
Yeah.
City have also got a really canny coach in Gary Bowyer, a man who can get things going, and it seems to get a good team spirit. That's been lacking at Ballyparade in recent seasons, and for me, they are the team to watch in this division.
Yeah, I do think Gary Bowyer's experience could be crucial in the battle for promotion for Bradford. They should be, let's face it, there or thereabouts. They brought in James Vaughan, who, as you say, probably too good for this level as well, and I think he's got probably 15 to 20 goals in him this season. In terms of the battle for relegation at the bottom, Cheltenham always seem to be there or thereabouts. I'd expect them to be there again this season. Macclesfield under Sol Campbell, what do you think?
Yeah, well, Cheltenham, Macclesfield, Morecambe, they're three sides with limited budget. Morecambe in particular, they're always everyone's pick, aren't they, to be relegated, and they always, credit to them, just about survive. They brought in actually some good goal-scoring options at League Two level. Lewis Alessandra and Sean Miller in particular. Miller previously played for Morecambe as well, so he knows what the club's about. But I think it's going to be difficult for those sides this season. I mentioned Salford as potential promotion contenders. I think Leyton Orient could also be in the mix for the playoffs. So they're the two sides that have come up from the National League who are probably a lot better than those sides at the bottom. And there's probably not necessarily a team in drastic transition or anything like that you can see slumping back from the middle of the pack into the relegation mix, which leaves the sides that just about survived last season, Macclesfield, Morecambe, Cheltenham. I could throw Cambridge and Port Vale potentially into that as well, sides who finished 19th and below. So I think those usual suspects will be in the mix.
Yeah, I don't think, Jack, in my opinion, neither of the teams that got promoted into League Two will struggle. I think Salford and Leyton Orient will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, they both recruited well and they've kept the right players, haven't they? I'm with Tom, really. I think the lack of resources really bites teams at the bottom of League Two, and especially Morecambe. They could struggle a bit for me, but I do have a sneaky feeling for Macclesfield, actually. Maybe not to reach the playoffs, but I think they're going to be okay. They did well under Sol Campbell last season. I know it's probably an old cliche from a neutral, but they've got a big name manager, so they're obviously going to do well. But I was quite impressed by his job, and I think they'll do all right.
Yeah, I thought he certainly did brilliantly to turn them around from a team rock bottom of the table and going nowhere a third of the way through the season. That is it then, our EFL roundup of who we think might well go up or go down this season. Either way, as I said at the start, it's going to be a roller coaster season again with plenty of spectacular action. And of course, we'll keep you updated with everything that is going on. And in terms of the betting angle, have a look at how things develop. Thanks for joining us.